correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hirstius, do you believe the Biden administration has been withholding lease sales specifically to raise costs for consumers? Before you answer that, I want to explain a little further what I'm getting at. In the Cook Inlet sale, the administration, in issuing its draft EIS in October of last year, stated that by withholding leases, this is on pages 46 and 47 of the draft EIS, as I recall it, if they were to proceed with not doing this, that the result would be a decrease in demand and resulting in lower emissions, because as the price of oil and oil-related products, including gasoline, increased, people would diminish consumption. Now, I also want to add here that prices of gasoline are up considerably, and so too is consumption up. So, twofold question. You think the Biden administration has been withholding lease sales in order to raise energy costs, perhaps with an environmental objective in mind? And do you believe that doing that produces environmental benefits?
So with regard to lease sales, and has it raised the cost to consumers? I do not think that not having lease sales has raised the cost to consumers. I think that that Mr. Elkin described very well some of the elements that have heavily contributed to the prices that we see today.
And do you think that part's deliberate in order to discourage and diminish consumption and therefore emissions?
I mean, I think that the leases that we need to retain and bring into the system, there's a bit of a misconception about it. These leases, this idea of an idle lease doesn't really exist. There's an evaluation period that is required after we bid on the lease, and there really is no benefit to holding on to a lease. So once we bring it into to our portfolio, so given in Shell's portfolio, we begin an evaluation process. We submit permits that will allow us to conduct activities on those leases. And then if we like what we see, and really about 10% of the remaining leases in the Gulf of Mexico we estimate to have oil and gas. So in many cases, we acquire a lease, we do technical work, and then we determine that we don't want to drill on those leases. In some cases, we decide we do want to drill on those leases, and when we do, we are either successful or unsuccessful. And if we're unsuccessful, we relinquish that lease and put it back into circulation. If we're successful, then it takes additional time, and while no activity is going on physically on the lease, there's a large amount of evaluation and interpretation that's required to determine how best to develop those natural resources.
So not every lease results in a drilled well. Not every drilled well ends up being a smashing success.
That's correct.
And so as a result of that, there's a connection. You have to have a flow of approved leases in order to keep it moving. Is that right?
That's correct.
Without that, you shut it down. Now, it appears to me that this is a feature, not a bug, for the Biden administration. They want to keep supply low so they can bring costs higher. This business of saying, oh, we're surprised, we're upset that the prices are this high, that is a feature, not a bug, based on what they're saying. And that's deeply concerning to me, because that harms the American people. And it harms them in a way that does not improve the environment. There's still demand for that. That demand goes somewhere. It goes to other people producing oil and gas in a way that's less environmentally responsible than it is here, resulting in even more emissions as they move it across oceans or otherwise in order to get it here. And I think that's unfortunate. Now, the Biden administration recently announced a ban on Russian energy imports. We've got to keep in mind that Russian oil, while a small percentage of our overall oil consumption, does include a fair amount of heavy crude. And heavy crude is an important feedstock for many U.S. refineries. I'm worried about this because I wonder how this ban will interact. I mean, I think it was probably the right thing to do to not buy heavy crude from them, not buy products from them, especially at this moment. But we do have to know where we're going to get heavy crude from. And so I worry about the interaction of that ban with the Biden administration's still undeterred, unchanged policies discouraging domestic production. if we can't produce and distribute that critical feedstock, we'd have to turn to a number of places outside the United States that are where we'd rather not be propping up vile dictators, horrible human rights abuses, and reckless environmental practices. Places like Venezuela, Iraq, and China are among the world's leading consumers. Now, we do have some that we can produce in the United States, including the Uinta Basin. It's one of the reasons why the administration must sign the record of decision approving the Uinta Basin Railway, especially now. This has never been more important than it is right now. They need to approve that, but they haven't. They've blown past the anticipated time when they should have approved it. We've never needed that more right now. This is good oil. It's oil that is very useful, that we desperately need right now. 30% of it that would be transported on that is owned by the Ute Indian tribe. It needs to be approved. But if we can't get that done, where would we have to go? And what would we do to get the heavy crude we need to maintain our feedstock?
Yeah, so I think the decisions that have been made in the past were under a different context. And I think it's important that we look at the decisions that need to be made now in the context that we have now. It is a crisis that we're under, and the solutions to this current crisis need to be very quickly thought through, and urgent action needs to be taken now. And I think that spans the spectrum from looking at what are some of the solvable problems of permitting and approvals that can take place that allow LNG exports to begin flowing more freely, both to Europe as well as our Asian allies. It also includes looking at pipelines. It also includes making sure that we continue to progress against our energy transition objectives, which include CCUS, as well as leasing and permitting in the Gulf of Mexico, as well as onshore. And I think with all of those combined, we do have the resources and need to really stay focused on how we can move quickly to make sure that we both have energy security for the U.S. and our allies, as well as making sure that we're progressing against our energy transition objectives.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Ms. Hirstius, I want to follow up on Senator Lee.